Yeah.
Carin, hello.
Hi, Sara. How are you?
I'm really, really good. Thank you, Carin. Carin, thank you so much for speaking to me today. Today, we're going to talk about a subject very, very close to my heart, PCOS. There's a lot of things I would have done differently had I known of people like you, Carin. First of all, I just want to introduce you properly. No, I've written it down because I always forget things. So you are neotritionhealth.com.
Well, that's our website, yeah.
Your website.
Yeah.
And you and Symone, your business partner, you are both registered dietitians and women's health advocates behind the Eat Better with PCOS program, which we'll come to a little bit later. Did I get your introduction right?
Good, yeah, well done.
Brilliant. So today, I really want to just ask you to help me understand better what PCOS is, how it affects the body and fertility, and what we can do about it.
Okay.
And whether or not those actions that we take can improve our body and our fertility.
Yeah.
So should we just start from the beginning by, could you give me a brief kind of, what is PCOS?
Yeah. So PCOS is an endocrine, which is basically a fancy word for a hormonal condition, which affects ovulation and leading to an ovulatory cycle, so when one doesn't ovulate. It also has a component where women are making too much testosterone, so too much of those androgen male hormones. And that then leads to kind of a lot of the symptoms of PCOS, which is sort of acne, hair loss, hair growth where you don't want hair. And another component of PCOS is something called insulin resistance. Now, just to briefly explain what insulin resistance is. So it's kind of like what somebody with type 2 diabetes has. Now, that's not to imply that women with PCOS have got type 2 diabetes, but this sort of high testosterone picture leads to higher insulin levels, and at the same time, higher insulin levels also lead to higher testosterone levels. So basically, when one is insulin resistant, when we eat carbohydrate food in particular, we produce insulin, and then that helps to ensure that the body can then basically take glucose, which is like the breakdown product of carbohydrates, take it into the cells. But when somebody is insulin resistant, those insulin receptors don't work as well, and as a consequence, the body then has to make more insulin in order to transport the glucose into the cells. So essentially, to summarize, it's a problem with ovulation, it's a problem with making too much testosterone, and for many women, not all, there is this component of insulin resistance.
You were just saying it's harder to break down, or it has to produce more. Does that mean, so if I were to eat a very carb heavy meal, am I going to be physically affected once I've eaten that? What happens to me?
Yeah. So again, just to sort of say, not all women with PCOS have got this insulin resistance component, but let's assume you do. So what you might find, if you do have quite a carb heavy meal, your pancreas is like going to overshoot and make too much insulin, and you might find that you then have a dip in blood sugars maybe 1 hour after the meal, where you sort of actually just feel almost like a low blood sugar feeling, and you maybe feel like you have to eat again while you've just eaten a massive meal like an hour before.
Yes.
I don't know if that's
that sounds very, very familiar, actually. Yes.
Yeah, and women, unfortunately, it's so funny when I sometimes see some women with PCOS, they'll just have this idea carbs are bad, they're not meant to eat carbs, but they don't actually understand why. They've just heard somewhere along the line, because they have PCOS, they shouldn't eat carbohydrates. And again, it's not always the case that it means like no carbohydrate, but a big part of when we talk to patients is about understanding which kinds of carbs are better, how to sort of balance meals so that you have inadequate proteins, fiber, which will then also sort of influence that insulin kind of a response. But yeah, going back to your question, how can one feel? You might sort of have a but like a bit of like a blood sugar roller coaster feeling, where you might feel sort of tired after the meal when your blood sugars maybe go up, and then a drop in blood sugars when you have a bit of an energy slump and you feel like you want something sweet. And unfortunately, these increases in insulin levels can also lead to gaining weight, unfortunately, or making it hard to lose weight.
And what about then in terms of your fertility? So if your testosterone levels are high, is that's affecting your fertility, is it?
Yes. So again, it's what is affecting fertility is the fact that women with PCOS don't ovulate as you know, monthly. Not that all women, even without PCOS, necessarily ovulate monthly, but they have got many cycles where they don't ovulate, and that's kind of where the fertility, unfortunate, comes into the picture, where they are problems with fertility. And then, as well as we know that, unfortunately, there's also a link between sort of higher body mass index, so being heavier, and fertility. And PCOS can, not for all women, because you do, and I think you've sort of mentioned that, I've heard before, that you haven't ever had a problem with your weight. So you do also get women with PCOS who do not necessarily have a problem with their weight. But for many women, they do have a problem with their weight. And certainly having the insulin resistance issue, high testosterone is a definite handicap when it comes to losing weight.
The reason why I realized something was wrong, which is why I went to my GP, is because I was having irregular periods.
Yeah.
So all the other, that for me was the main side effect. It's only now that you're talking about certain, side effects, I think, oh my gosh, yes, I do have that dip after I've eaten, a carb heavy meal.
Yeah.
So like I say, I then went to the doctor to get tested. When I think I was like 17 or 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of women don't get tested early enough? Like what do you recommend? Do you say go straight to your GP or home testing?
Definitely. You want to get it properly diagnosed by a GP or a gynecologist. And in terms of how one would get it diagnosed, PCOS, unfortunately, is a bit of a condition of like a diagnosis of exclusion, where they rule out other things. So you want to, so lack of periods wouldn't be a sufficient sort of a symptom for diagnosing PCOS. So that's important to remember. So that alone definitely isn't a way to diagnose PCOS. Also, so again, those high androgens, so those high male hormones like testosterone or something called DHEA. Also looking at insulin levels. So testing one's blood sugars isn't a good way to diagnose PCOS either. One needs to measure insulin. So it's looking at insulin, the male hormones, and then sort of period kind of problems, be that lack of periods, or when you do have a period, it's sort of a period that goes on forever, or it's very heavy. That would kind of be a way to sort of diagnose PCOS.
Yeah. So when I did get my diagnosis, I was simply put on the pill. That was it. I was given contraception and away I went. That's been it. And I am now 46 and I've never done anything other than go on the pill to start with, and then come off when I was trying to get pregnant, and then spent 4 years trying to get pregnant through IVF. What can we do? What can I do? Is it too late for me?
In terms of you, it's never too late. And unfortunately, PCOS doesn't go away after you've maybe had kids, and sort of even after menopause. PCOS doesn't go away, unfortunately. So when women can still be left with that, what we call sort of metabolic component of PCOS, which is sort of the insulin resistance, blood sugar, risk of diabetes problem. So that unfortunately doesn't go away, even if your periods kind of go away. But back to sort of what you can do.
Yes.
Being stuck on a pill is kind of I wouldn't say it's the worst thing to do, but it's not a very helpful sort of strategy to manage PCOS. So again, being stuck on a pill, and then when you come off the pill, that can actually in itself raise your testosterone levels. So really, that would not be the best strategy. So what could you do? like I said, if you have got an insulin resistance component, then it's important we want to sort of do things in order to lower your insulin resistance, improve your insulin sensitivity, and that, many things can improve insulin sensitivity. The right foods being one, the right supplements, sleep, stress management, and I can expand on those things if you want me to, but also doing some things to kind of lower testosterone levels. And then if one were to sort of course, I'm not a doctor, so I don't prescribe medications, but if you were to sort of take medications, then there's something called metformin, which is actually a drug that's used commonly in diabetes. I would again say that as a first step, probably better than just being sort of stuck on the pill.
Yeah. So metformin, so what does does that sort of balance you out? Is that the aim of?
So metformin is it's, like I said, it's a diabetes drug. It is helping to lower the insulin resistance. That's what it's doing, which then, it will then in theory sort of lower testosterone levels, which then also just sort of improve, other sort of sex hormone levels. So that's what metformin is doing. Okay,
so metformin, and then things that you can do yourself in terms of your well-being and diet, for example. Yeah, diet is key, isn't it?
Diet is key, and yes. So again, things that one could do. I don't know how much detail you want me to go in with diet, but yeah. So carbs is a big focus when it comes to PCOS, but by no means the be-all and end-all. Some women can get so fixated on following a super low-carb diet that they actually, forget about other things and forget about what they should eat. So the right kinds of carbohydrates, making sure you're balancing carbohydrates with adequate proteins, fiber, which then improves that blood sugar insulin response. Many women, which I haven't sort of mentioned up until now, have also got sort of an inflammatory component to their PCOS. So also having things in your place in your diet which are helping to lower inflammation. So things like plenty of oily fish being sort of one example. And then there are also some sort of foods which can be helpful to lower testosterone levels. So there's lots we can do from a food point of view. And then also, trying to lose weight if that's applicable. I should just again mention that for some women who have who don't have a regular period, that maybe don't have a very clear diagnosis of PCOS, for them often a low-carb diet isn't necessarily the best diet. And so again, just to sometimes be clear, just don't blindly, just everybody with PCOS follow a low-carb diet. And for some women, especially women with sort of PCOS and they're on the slimmer side, it's also important that they're eating enough. So and then aside from diet, sleep is extremely important for regulating insulin levels, and of course exercise. So those things all sound pretty obvious, like sleep, diet, exercise, but there's lots of little kind of nuances when it comes to women with PCOS, and every woman with PCOS is a little bit different, if that makes sense as well.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any supplements that you should top yourself up on in addition to, perhaps changing the way that you're eating and, like you say, adapt, either the oily fish or, is there something that definitely, helps?
Yeah, I'm not one of those dietitians who believe that we can get everything from a balanced, healthy diet. So definitely the right supplements, good quality supplements can be very helpful. With PCOS, my kind of go-to supplement is something called inositol or myo-inositol. So that particular supplement has got evidence for, especially when you take it in the right form. So there are two forms called chiro-inositol and myo-inositol. So in those forms, it can help with improving the insulin resistance, improving ovulation. So really just a really good and probably the best studied supplement for PCOS. So that's number one. Number two, I'd probably say maybe zinc, especially if somebody is following a vegetarian diet. So again, zinc can especially help with sort of lowering testosterone. Also, just if if there's excess inflammation. And then I suppose number 3, I'd maybe say something called N-acetylcysteine, or often abbreviated to NAC. And again, that's also a well-researched supplement in PCOS. It can help with improving ovulation, insulin resistance, and even preventing women who have got PCOS, not just preventing, but improving the likelihood of going on to develop gestational diabetes in pregnancy. So yeah, those I'd say would be my kind of top 3.
I think I've heard a lot about turmeric as well.
Yeah.
Is that just like a general great supplement, or is that?
No, turmeric, or also often referred to as curcumin, which is like the sort of active ingredient in turmeric, that can really help with lowering inflammation. So no, yeah, a really good all-round supplement. But turmeric is one of those supplements where the kind of turmeric really does matter. And just going to buy, I won't sort of mention any brands, but just going to buy, any turmeric supplement is probably going to be a waste of time and money. Whereas something like, vitamin C, vitamin D, the kind of supplement doesn't really matter all that much.
Okay, that's really, I've only just sort of got into supplements this year. It's crazy. Really, really crazy.
Yeah.
So if you do make these changes, if you get tested, you discuss metformin with your doctor, you look into your diet, try and improve sleep and exercise, can you not only see an effect in your, in the symptoms, but can you see an effect in your fertility? Can you actually improve your fertility?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can't give you sort of, stats on my kind of fingertips, but without a doubt, you can. So all of those things are, like I say, they improving the chance of ovulating. They hopefully may lead to losing weight. They lower inflammation. They lower insulin resistance, and that is all going to improve fertility.
Yes. And I want to mention your course here, because something I'm guilty of is I get all excited and then I go away and I forget everything.
Yeah.
And I think this is why at the age of 46, I still have done nothing proactive to my PCOS. But your course is very much a sort of hand-holding throughout. I've written it down, it's an 8-week one-on-one coaching course.
That's right, yeah.
PCOS. So it's very much, once you sign up for this course, you've got, the person who signed up, you've got, holding hands, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not a one-off, like a one-off appointment that you go and you do it yourself. So it's really kind of trying to be as comprehensive as possible, doing some tests up front, so some blood tests, and also part of the program is wearing a glucose monitor to also just look to see whether there may be any sort of blood sugar issues going on. And then it's about sort of trying to dive into like what is kind of like the driver behind that individual's PCOS and how we can address it. We would sort of talk to the person, to the woman, like every 2 weeks, and then in between we have contact sort of via email. So so it's holding the person's hand, but also it's sort of drip feeding the information. Because when we get overloaded with information, we're not always the best or most effective at making changes, even although we think we are, we're not.
Yes, I love that. So it's almost like a sort of personal trainer for your PCOS.
Exactly. Yeah. Somehow people think, and I always, like I'm a personal trainer myself as well. So, some people think like they're happy to have a personal trainer like every week, but somehow they think they just need a one-off dietitian and they're going to sort of manage to be successful at whatever they're doing. So, and some people are, but, we're just human. We generally don't, change or develop new habits that easily.
Yes, I think it's fantastic. And, life is all about hindsight, isn't it? And, oh God, I wish I'd done that back then. And, I wish I had done something more proactive about my PCOS, because I've said this so many times before. I believe I could have reached motherhood a lot earlier in my life had I made better changes, made better decisions. But I think I just went in totally blind and it was like, oh yeah, I've got PCOS. Okay, great. Let's just crack on with fertility treatment without totally understanding my diagnosis or what I could do.
No. Yeah, well, you're doing your bit to at least educate women with PCOS. So,
well, I'm so thrilled I spoke to you today, and I'm going to watch this back and actually make some notes for myself, especially about those supplements, because I need to get on that. And we'll put details of your course underneath our chat today, so that people can then get in touch with you, find out more, and then hopefully, sign up and get some proper guidance, and like you say, ease those symptoms and improve their fertility by the end of by the end of the 8 weeks.
Well, I'd say 8 weeks is probably a bit soon. I'd say ideally give yourself kind of 3 to even 6 months.
Yes.
So these changes unfortunately don't happen overnight.
Yeah. But it's the 8 weeks of.
But the course is 8 weeks.
Yeah, 8 weeks of educating yourself, isn't it? Or being educated, so that you can then. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for today, and maybe we can touch base again soon. And
I'll be happy to talk again. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Take care.